Section 3, or Chapter 20C, Mysteries on the Mind, from the Green Ember. Liar's an awfully strong word, Emma said, Kyle looking wounded. I know, she said, scowling. But what about Terrell? Pickett asked. Tell us about it. It's a kid's story, Pickett, Emma said, her anger rising. It's a fantasy to distract us from our real work here. But I want to hear, Emma said Pickett. Can you let me decide for myself what to believe? One more thing, then I'll be quiet, said Emma. You can choose what you believe, Shuffler, but you can't change what's true. The land of Terrelin is like Kyle's honor. It doesn't exist, she said, throwing her hands up in surrender. But it does, said Kyle, throwing another smirk Emma's way and half turning away from her so as to exclude her from the conversation. Gregor's aunt's friend from the Halfwind Citadel met a fellow who was out on patrol one night, and he saw it. He saw Terrelane. One night when the fog was thick and he was far away down southwest, he lost his way. After wandering for hours, he climbed a hill in the dark and saw in the distance 1,000 torchlights, like stars across a field. It was the Valley of Stars, the lost land of Terrelin. It exists, and this fellow supposed there were fairer things there than any we've seen in this dingy den of sweaty labor. You haven't broken a sweat at work in all your life. Because I'm smarter than that, Emma, he said. He ignored her and focused on Heather and Pickett. I'm going someday, heading out to find it. If you ever get tired of this place, come along. He kept their attention as he got up, bowed slightly, spun around, and sauntered off. Don't listen to him, Pickett, said Emma. He once tried to seriously tell me that he was a real prince, the so very secret heir to the true king. He was so convincing. It was like he believed it. I'm telling you, he's good at sucking you in, but not so good at delivering on his word. But he sure is entertaining, said Heather, patting Emma's hand. No one tells us anything, so we're curious. I know, Emma said. Lord Rake says you'll be initiated soon, and lots of questions will be answered then. I want to get you answers, but I think it's best to get them from the right sources. I want to follow the law of the initiates, even if I'm frustrated by it. Unlike Kyle, I don't think it's right to pick and choose which laws to follow. Your situation is, well, unique. Anyway, that's where we're headed next, to meet someone who can give you some answers. This place has many, many wonderful rabbits. Good rabbits, huh? Like him, Pickett asked, pointing to the black rabbit under the maple tree. The brooder had risen from his resting position and was fiddling with some long ropes and straps that were arranged around the maple. This contraption looked like a tangled mess, but he drew a rope tightly here and loosened one there and adjusted the great orange heads on the wolf-like wooden dummies. Heather could see now that the orange heads were pumpkins. The things filling the trees were topped with pumpkins and other gourds too, though she couldn't tell what they were exactly. They were at a distance where they could see him in the shapes, but not make out exactly what he was doing. No one was near him. The groups of working rabbits and their playing children kept an obvious distance from him. It was like they were afraid of him, which Heather understood. She certainly felt a strong sense within her that spoke clearly in her mind that he is not safe. She noticed, now that he'd risen, how many eyes were watching him. The older ones watched out of the corner of their eyes and with subtle glances, but the young watched openly and whispered to each other. Pay him no mind. He's another troubler of the community, Emma said. But she didn't take her own advice. We seem to be meeting quite a few of that type, said Heather. I know, Emma said, frowning. I'm trying to fix that. They all watched carefully as the black rabbit made his rounds, checking knots and hoisting a wooden contraption, tying a rope off, testing a knot, or making other mild adjustments. Then he disappeared behind the maple tree, only to emerge later with a sword and a shield. The shield was black, just like the sword hilt. A single emerald shone out from behind the black hilt, glinting in the sunlight. He wore black clothes which matched his color. His shield bore a red diamond, the same red diamond that Red-Eye Garlickson and his band of wolves wore, but there were no fangs on this one. Pickett stood up. Who's he? Heather asked. In endless frustration, she said, "Everyone calls him Helmer the Black. He likes the well-cut caves here, a bit of a mystery. The one who knows who he is won't say, and the ones who don't know aren't allowed to ask. At least that's what I get from my noble guardian, Lord Rake." "Not allowed to ask," said Pickett. "Why? Why are all these secrets here?" "You and everyone else would like to know," said Emma. "The rumor is that Helmer's a knight from King Jupiter's army, disgraced and angry and wanting revenge. But half the time you can't tell if he's madder at the Lords of Prey who killed a king or the Lords of Cloud Mountain. I can't imagine him being meaner to the Lords of Prey than he is to us." "He's difficult?" Heather asked. "He makes Shuffler here look like the pleasantest rabbit who ever lived," she said. Heather was amazed she could get away with making jokes about Pickett's sullenness that she herself dared not try. "Where Kyle talks constantly, you won't hear 10 words from Helmer in a whole year. He won't suffer any interference in his exercises, which, if you asked me, should be interfered with. Though he does work hard in the garden and does his share of the labor, but he's constantly, oh wait, look here." They all looked where she pointed. A very young rabbit doe in a blue dress was toddling toward Helmer as he practiced sword strokes. The rabbits nearby, even adult ones, gave up the pretense of other work to watch. He finished a striking slice, the sword disappearing into its sheath in a swift, silent motion. "He won't hit her?" Heather asked. "I wouldn't put it past him," said Emma, looking worried. Just then a mother ran after the little one, almost catching up to her as the black rabbit, Helmer, turned and saw them. There was a moment of silence as he eyed them both coolly. Heather was afraid he might attack them, but his sword remained sheathed. "Leave me alone," he growled. His tone was gravelly, harsh, and bitter. It reminded Heather a little of Red-Eye Garlickson. Seeing the black clothes and the red diamond symbol, then hearing that awful voice, she panicked. The mother, frozen to the spot, couldn't say anything. She clutched her child, opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She was terrified and could not move. "Hideous rabbit," Emma hissed. "He ought to be expelled." Heather nodded, but looked over at Pickett, who was entirely engrossed. Then Helmer drew his sword and ran, and Heather screamed.